Hello and welcome to another episode on Asylum DSG, and today we're going to be talking about feelings you might experience when you lose someone to suicide. That's the basic gist of it. Before I get into it, I will say, if you're new, welcome to the channel. For whatever reason that brings you here, you're here. So, thank you for watching, and I hope this helps in some way, shape or form. That is the goal. I said, if I can help even one person, I'll be happy with that. If you're returning, you've seen other videos, then, same message goes to you. I hope all is well, whatever brings you to this channel, be it because you're going through something similar yourself, or you know someone who is, or you want to help people who are, then, much appreciated. I think is what I can say, because it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to talk about. It really is. Anyways, so feelings you might experience. I'm just going to talk about some of the feelings that I went through, still go through, because not all of them go away, and some of them choose as and when they want to show up. There's not a lot you can do about it, but you can be prepared. Anyways, well, one of the feelings I definitely went through, and almost all of us go through, is sadness. Let me tell you about sadness. When I think about sadness, I just go back to that day when my mum was telling me about my dad passing, and when my brother told me about it as well, and taking that long walk. That's one of the first things that I did. I just left the house. I just needed to just go and just be. When you one of those times when you just don't want to think, you don't really want to, you almost don't want to exist in that moment. You just be. And I was just like, okay, well, I've got legs, I'll just walk and just see what happens. And I had music, and for a time it helped. And then I just saw myself go into a corner shop, bought, I can't remember what alcoholic beverage it was, but I didn't care. I was just like, yeah, give me the big bottle. I'm pretty sure it was like, some cheap ass alcohol. I was just like, I'm just gonna walk and drink. I don't even know why I thought that was a good idea, because in hindsight, as they always say. Anyways, I just went to a park, and I just opened up the bottle, and I just sat on a bench, and I just started gulping. I just started gulping and gulping and gulping. Nothing was working. I'm talking about maybe a drink that you would normally take you like an hour and a half to finish. I was just downing it. I downed it in about 10 minutes. Still felt nothing. So I went again and I bought 2 more. Went back to that same spot. And I just remember all I could think when I was drinking was just, I just can't believe the news. I can't believe that this has happened. I can't believe my dad's gone. I can't believe this is how he's gone, And that sadness just intensifies, is the message. The sadness, it starts off It's not even small. It starts off as just like a seed that's planted, involuntarily planted into your brain, and it's almost like that seed will grow under any conditions whatsoever. You could just sit there and feel like shit and do nothing, and it's still growing. You could be out there pretending to be happy, pretending to ignore all the issues with, what's going on in your mind, and it's still growing. It doesn't care what source you give it, it is still growing. And it got to a point where, I made some bad choices. I did make some bad choices. Some of them still haunt me till this day, but you live and you learn, right? So sadness is definitely one of those things that, will hit you hard. And one thing you learn as time goes by is that, it does get a little bit easier, in the sense that, they say time is the healer, but sometimes it will just hit you. And examples of that are like birthdays, anniversaries of the actual, I don't want to call it an incident, but let's call it an incident just for conversation's sake. And sometimes just random, I will say this. There was a time when, just after it happened, I couldn't even deal with seeing the word suicide. If I saw it somewhere, like written on a billboard, or it comes across on TV, for, it's out of context or it's in context, it's just that word. Whenever I saw that word, I would just sink. I literally would just sink to the bottom and just, I'd always just cave in. I'd just cave in, and, well, it took a while. I started feeling better, but sometimes when I still see that word, it just hits me different. And I feel like it's the same with other people, like once you experience suicide in some way, shape or form, and you have to live on, it just hits you different. But anyways, I spoke a lot on sadness there. Another one is shock. Shock is something that happens more towards the early stages, though. It does take a long time to shift in itself. Just, the disbelief almost, and just the abruptness of the information, the intensity of it all. It's just so, like, it's so overwhelming that you almost can't see another way around it. It's like your life stops. I felt like my life stopped, when this happened. And I just didn't see a way out. And that was the shock. That was the shock of it all, really. With shock, it's almost like a grieving process that you have to go through, and you just have to eventually come to terms with what's happened and be at peace with the fact, not the feelings, not how you move forward, but just the fact, just to accept the fact, because that's not going to change. And that's a hard thing to do. It is a hard thing to do. So for me, it was just time. With shock, it was just time that helped. Because other feelings start to sort of grow, and other feelings start to lower themselves as time goes by. So shock was definitely something that ended up sort of diminishing. So if you're feeling any form of shock, then it does go. It just takes time. Anger, anger was definitely something I felt a lot of, and arguably still do sometimes. Not just the anger at myself, but the anger, I did feel a lot of anger towards my father for a while, just because I just didn't get it. I didn't want to get it. I didn't want to understand it. It was just. I'm not saying this is going to apply to everyone, but I come from a religious family, and one of the things that is in the Bible is about suicide and what that means, and I'm not going to go into it because everyone knows anyway. Suicide, you take your own life, it's a bad thing in the Bible. So for me, I was like, okay. I'd always shelved that subject as just there. Like, I never really thought it would. I never really thought about it in that much depth until it hit home. That's usually the case. So, just after finding out about my dad and the amount of anger I felt towards him first, I was like, why would you do this? Like, not only to me, but to yourself, to the family, why would you bring that in as a fact that I have to hold on to for the rest of my life? That I have to deal with, that I'm going to have to acknowledge for the rest of my life. And, it's not like a year's going to pass and, the fact's going to change. It's never going to change. So, I felt really angry that he chose to do that to me. At least, that's how I felt at the time, at the start, and it then progressed to, because I could only feel so much anger towards him. I was also feeling all other kinds of things, and one emotion's taking over the other. One is more intense than the other, depending on the day, week, month, mood. And it led to almost that lacking answers and stuff just led to turning the anger towards myself. And I really did feel a lot of anger towards myself as well, purely because of blame that I didn't do more. I didn't see it. I wasn't even aware of it. You know what? Like, one of the things you definitely do is think about the last time you saw the person or you spoke to the person, and you try and recall the conversation. You almost want to change things about that moment, in hindsight again. I saw my dad 2 months before he did that. 2 months before he died. And I'll always wonder if that conversation had anything to do. I'll always wonder. I know I've had therapy. I've had people I've spoken to and opened up about this whole thing, and they always give you the same message. Don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. You're not to blame. And but the only one who could truly tell me that, and I would believe them, is the only person who isn't here. And so, it took a while. It took a while to overcome that anger, overcome that blame, that it really did, because I couldn't see anything else. And, it was just one of those where you just have to, the only way out is through, and you have to sort of process this stuff, and you have to go through it. You have to talk about it, even with yourself in your head, and really come to a full-on conclusion and peace almost about it all. And it's not easy. It's really not easy, you know. And I think people underestimate how much time as well it takes to get over this stuff, you know. And I'm what, 4 or 5 years in. I'm still struggling. You know, not every day is gonna be, you know, sunshine and rainbows, right? So it's the exact same with this. Another one is frustration. Frustration is another feeling I had to go through, and oh my gosh, it was just the lack of control over the situation, the lack of knowledge of when it was happening. It was a Thursday, like I said, and I was thinking it was a good day. It was gonna be a good day. I was feeling great, you know. I've been working on myself for some time up till that point, and it just shook me to the core. So just that level of just like no control when something that terrible happens is probably like one of the hardest things to have to go through. Which leads to confusion. Frustration leads to confusion as well, because like I said, I thought he was fine. I thought he was okay. I thought he was, you know, people had told me that he was, you know, ill, but I thought it was physical, you know. And this is another problem. People just, it was a problem that I had, you know, the whole illness, you know. We always associate illness with stuff that you can see, because, you know, we're always looking for signs as humans, especially ones that we can easily identify what the problem is and how to resolve it, or how we can contribute towards resolving it. And mental health, it doesn't work that way, or at least the relationship is a lot more complicated. And so the confusion, I was just so confused when I found out. So confused. And then isolation is the final feeling I'll talk about today. And the feeling of isolation, which is probably the main reason most of you are here, it's that feeling that no one else around you completely fully understands like what you're going through at the time. They might understand the fact, they might know the fact, they might accept the fact, they might even tell you, hey, I can recommend this and that, you know, go speak to these people, go try and do this. But, you know, I know that there's limitations in what people can really do to help, you know, when you're in that situation. And there's plenty out there, you know, there's support groups and all that stuff. But, you know, in here is the real battle, where, you know, if you're isolating in here, then, you know, you're isolating definitely around you. And, you know, I like to think you can be isolated and still be around people. You know, you might be around your friends, your colleagues, and still in your mind, you're just miles away. And this used to happen to me a lot. You know, I'd sit there and I'd stare into the nothingness, and maybe come to 10, 15 minutes later, only realizing I've been staring into nothingness. And people would ask me, are you alright? Are you okay? You know, what can you say? No, I'm still thinking about the suicide, to be honest with you. No one wants to hear that. You know, no one wants to hear that. I don't blame them. For not wanting to hear it. You know, it is a grim subject. It is No one wants to be in that position, but unfortunately, myself and some of you watching this are. And so, you know, you do want to talk to someone about it. You do want to be heard. You do want to almost, almost, almost draw out exactly how you feel at the time, because I feel like there's a degree of understanding from people, but then there's that extra level that just doesn't quite translate across, because you know, it's very internal stuff, and I hope people know what I'm talking about, you know. So I isolated both mentally and physically for better part of 2 years. 2 years. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to do anything. I barely kept with my job just because I wanted my bills to be paid. That's literally it. I was like, work, get home, isolate. In my dark room, I would literally make sure when I was passing or when I was going home, I would just get my supplies for that evening. I'd get my snacks, I'd get my drinks, and I'd just stay in my room. I would not do anything else. And sometimes, you know, and whilst I'm in my room, it would get that bad that I would feel like the light, like the actual light is annoying me. I would turn the light off and just sit in the dark and just be in the corner, just being, you know, just being for a minute, because at least when I'm in the dark in my room, nothing can touch me, nothing can affect me. And that was the mentality I was in, and it took it took months. It took months just to get me out of that room. It really did. You know, my friends tried to get me out. My friends, you know, would text me this and that, just saying, you know, hey, we're thinking about you. You know, we're doing this if you want to show up. And you know, and you know what, I only ever went twice in that 2 year period. I only ever went to see my friends twice, and that was with a real push, you know. And I remember them seeing me, and one of the things they mentioned was like, you know, you've gained a few. And I was like, oh, I actually thought I was looking okay, but you know, it's those things, you're just not in that mental space. I was just eating, drinking, and not caring, and you know, it was probably doing me more harm doing that, and I was probably stuck in a spiral because of that. But I just didn't see it. I didn't want to, you know. And I think there's a bit of shame as well that comes with it. You almost feel like this shame that you don't really need to feel, and yet it's there, and you're like, oh, I'm that person now who's associated to suicide, and you know, what people gonna think of me, what people gonna say, what are people just gonna treat me different all the time now because of this? And you know, a lot of it was in my head, I know, you know. And I'm not saying that my friends didn't try. They did. They absolutely did. And I'm eternally grateful for that. It was just a hard time, and you know, I was so powerless to it for a long time. I think that's the whole thing, you know. And it's about, you know, regaining that power. So anyways, all of those feelings you feel sometimes all in one go, sometimes one after the other, sometimes one particular feeling on a day and then one other feeling on another day, and that's just how it works. And I guess the message today, you know, is not that complex. It's just, this is how I did it, you know. And this is something that my therapist actually said. You know, think of your problems as a fist, and you know, all those things that you feel, the sadness, the shock, the anger, the frustration, the confusion, the isolation, think of it as like this size, and it's never going to change. It's literally just this big. It's never going to change no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter what you anything, to be honest with you, it's gonna remain this size. But what you can change is this and yourself, which is part of this, I guess. But you can get bigger, you can grow around it, you know. That's and that as a message, like, was so powerful for me, at least, because for the first time I was like, okay, no one's actually telling me that, you know, I need to make these problems smaller. I need to almost put a fire extinguisher on the entire situation until it's like so minuscule that I can overcome it. No, it's about growing around it as a person, and it takes time. There's you know, there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's so many different things you can find online or in person, you know, that help with that. And I will talk about more of that stuff, you know, that's worked for me, especially in the next few videos. But that's the message I want you to take from this, is that, you know, problems here, and you will grow around them. You will become bigger than the problems. That's how I did it, and that's how I hope, you know, some of you will learn how to do. This is not medical advice, so no one please shoot me or anything. Please, if you need actual medical attention, I do say, you know, go and speak to the professionals that be. But, you know, like we said, we all need a channel. We all need, or at least I need, this channel to create this community where, you know, aside from all that stuff, aside from all the professional help, aside from all that, you know, there's also somewhere else where it's just a more comfortable social place where we can talk about this stuff, you know, and just go in. It's just me and you. So just keeping it raw, keeping it plain, keeping it simple, and we'll work through this. You know, just like I have been, we will work through this. So that's about what I can talk about today. So thank you for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you want to follow the journey, and please share the video as well, if you know, if you feel like it can help other people also going through something similar.